distinguished guests, or at least one that we want to give a chance for you to meet, and then we'll start with our program. And I'm just going to go ahead and warn you, we're not getting out of here at 9 o'clock, so just get comfortable. It's going to be 9:15-ish, so just get comfortable. I've done my best. Of course, we made a special effort to invite those folks that were candidates, qualified candidates that won the primary or runoffs, and I've done my best to make note of that. So, but if I miss your name, we're going to give you a chance to make sure we know you're here. So I'm going to start with the mayors, and then we'll just go through our list here. So Mayor Billy Knight, Moss Point, sir, if you want to just raise your hand. Mayor Kenny Holloway, sir. Yes, sir. And I'll do like graduation. We'll hold our applause and clap everybody at the same time. That way everybody feels like they got applauded. Is there another mayor in the room that I may have missed? Okay, good. I didn't miss anybody. Okay, on supervisors, this was another key group of elected officials that we really wanted to engage with and invite them to the meeting. And so we've got a host of those. I want to make sure we recognize those. Starting in Hancock County, we got Greg Shaw. Sir, you right there in the middle, make sure everybody knows where you're at. Supervisor District 2. Scotty Adams, Supervisor District 4, sir. And I didn't see anybody else from Hancock County, but please let me know if I missed them. Harrison County, we've got a sheriff-elect, that Matt Haley, if you want to let everybody see you.
Right.
And I think we also, Nathan Baird, I think I saw Nathan come in the room, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, got him on the far side over here, okay. Make sure you say hello to Nathan. He'll be the newly elected supervisor in District 5 for Harrison County. Any other supervisors in Harrison County that I may have not called? Good. In Jackson County, we got good representation in Jackson County. Ken Taylor, Supervisor District 3 is right here in the front. And also, anybody else? Randy said he may be here this morning. I didn't see Randy. Okay. And then newly elected sheriff in Jackson County, John Ledbetter. John, where are you at this morning? Thank you for being here, sir. We've also got a host of House and Senate elected folks here. Representative Kevin Felsher, I think, was in the room. Kevin up front. Representative Greg Haney from Gulfport. Greg, I know you were here. Yes, sir. Senators newly elected, or at least elect from the Senate District in Hancock County, Philman Ladner. I think Philman was here. Sir in the back, make sure you introduce yourself to Philman. Senator Delano over here on the right, guarding the eggs and bacon. Thank you, sir. Senator Mike Thompson. I know I saw Senator Thompson. Did I miss any of our House or Senate members? Certainly don't want to miss y'all. Good. I think now we can give everybody a round of applause. Now we do have some, I don't want to leave out we've got members of the Gulfport City Council here. I think we've got a few, Felix from Biloxi City Council. We've got some other possible City Council members that may have not listed here. Make sure you say hello to those folks. Make sure you know that you appreciate what they do. I'm trying to get through this because we've got quite a program. I want to give Secretary Watson time for him to say a few words and then us be able to answer plenty of questions. So we want plenty of questions. We've also got members of our executive committee here. I want to make sure we recognize them. Jonathan Jones, Brandon Dardo, Roy Anderson, Sheva Sweatman, Lee Bond, Ron Barnes. Thank y'all for being here this morning. Y'all are a huge part of the organization. Now I also want to mention our congressional offices because they serve a big role in what we get to, what happens in South Mississippi. Congressman Ezell, Steve Strickler, and Julie Miller, I think y'all were here earlier. Yep. And then Wynn from Senator Hyde Smith's office. Wynn Ellington, sir. Yep, right in the back. Sorry. Thank you. A lot of people in the room. It's a good scene to see so many people in the room. Normally we'll recognize agency heads, but I'm going to skip past y'all today just because we got so many people to address. But I did want to give some special recognition to our new commander at the construction battalion unit in Gulfport, Ron Jenkins. Where are you at, Ron?
Sir, right here.
Will you come up and just do a quick introduction?
Sure.
and let us, yeah, come on up. You come to the mic if that's better.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A couple weeks ago, we had a change of command. If you remember, our previous commanding officer, Captain Jeffrey Powell, was relieved by Captain Anna Franco. And for me, I've known Anna for 25 years. We came into the Navy together. This is her third tour in Gulfport and the Mississippi coast. She's already met folks here this morning that she met in previous tours. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our new commanding officer, Captain Anna Franco.
You can address everybody from right
I'll
there.
just stay right here. Hey, it's great to be back. I spent 4 years here the last time I was in Mississippi and met, so many folks. My family and I are excited to be back here on the Gulf Coast. After spending 5 years in Washington, D.C., when we told people we were moving back to Mississippi, the look of panic on their faces, I was like, you have no idea what you're missing here, down here on the Gulf Coast. And again, we're super excited to be part of this community again. My husband, my 2 boys, it feels like a homecoming of sorts. So again, thank you, and I look forward to meeting you all as we get around the area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also saw Andy Ratcliffe with the CRTC. Andy, stand up. You're not hard to find. You're me. Thank you for being here. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on here. A few announcements, Business Council announcements. We asked you last month to be on the lookout for a CEO survey. We sent this to our private company members only. About 150 to 170, I think, surveys went out. We've had really good responses, but not quite good enough. We've had almost 65 responses to that. We'd like to get to 80 or even 90 responses, so we're going to extend that period by which you can fill out that CEO survey. It'll take you 10 minutes to complete, but the information that we get back from that and then our membership gets back from that is really important. So I'm going to give you another last reminder here. If you've not filled out that CEO survey, please go back and find it. It's a link to a SurveyMonkey survey. It'll take you 10 minutes to complete. And the information is very, very important to us. So we will present those results in our September meeting, not this meeting. I got a few save the dates or mark your calendar events. The Business Council's going to finish the year really strong. We're not letting up. We've got a special reception for President Joe Paul of USM. We're going to do that on September the 28th. That's going to be at Centennial Plaza. I think at the chapel. We'll get you more information via an invitation and emails to follow, but go ahead and mark your calendar for that date. And then William Carey, another university here on the coast, we have partnered with William Carey to do a small business leadership award program, a luncheon. I think this will be the 3rd year we've done it, maybe the 4th year. So that's going to be on October the 20th. That'll be at the Great Southern Club. And so be on the lookout for some information about that. Two important institutions to the coast that we're trying to partner with and make sure that we get good information out about what they're doing. And then this is, I don't have a date for this last thing, but this is, I think, what's going to be moving forward, something that's going to be important to the Business Council's program of events that we host throughout the year. We're going to refer to them as regional policy forums. And so we're going to tackle or try to take on some of the leading issues that the coast is facing, probably quarterly. So we would have one of these maybe 3 to 4 times a year. We're planning the first one as we speak. And the 2 topics that we want to tackle before the end of the year is coastal insurance, affordability, cost. We're going to call in some subject matter experts, some panelists, maybe a keynote speaker. So if that is of interest to you, or if you know someone that may want to participate in that, other than just come to hear it, please see me or Ben. The other issue is related to some regulatory wetlands as it relates to development called Sackett versus USA or EPA. This was a recent Supreme Court decision that affects the waters of the United States. Without all the details, it will have a huge impact potentially on the Gulf Coast just because all the things we do, we run into these wetland issues, and it potentially could have a very positive impact on how we develop in the future. But we think we need to be more informed about those things as they kind of come into, shed light on those things. So be on the lookout as we develop that program. We're going to do that before the end of the year, and then take on different issues next year, but this is something we think our membership would benefit from. And I think it's part of our purpose is to bring those tough issues to light and make sure that we're all on the same page. So that's the end of our announcements. I'm gonna now get to a quick introduction. And by quick, I requested a bio of our speaker, and he clearly has gotten too involved in the staff operations, because they gave me like 2 sentences of his, so I'm sure somebody had a much longer bio, and then what they sent me was abbreviated. Honestly, he doesn't need much of an introduction. He's a coastal guy, and we all have supported and appreciated his public service for some time. But I'm gonna go ahead and read it. Secretary Watson is married to Lauren and dad to 3 beautiful girls, Gracie, Annie, and Cora Elizabeth. He's from Pascagoula, graduate of Pascagoula High School, the University of Mississippi, and the University of Mississippi School of Law. His father was a pipe fitter and a current minister, and mom was a bank teller and executive assistant. He served 12 years as a strong conservative in the state Senate and is now serving as our 36th Secretary of State. Please welcome Secretary Michael Watson.
So much to talk about. This is going to be basically a lightning round for 20-30 minutes, however long I have. My chief of staff's in the back. I told her to give me the hook when it's time to go, so I promise y'all he won't be here too long. Jamie, congratulations. I know I've told you this before, but appreciate the work that you're doing. What a great leader for this group who has experience at the local level, at the state level, and now running this organization. So it's going to be really helpful and impactful for y'all to have Jamie here. So congratulations. And thank you for that brief introduction. I did get involved with that. Carla will tell you, I don't like long introductions. I'd rather just talk to you about what's important. So the things that are important about me are that I am a dad, and that I am a husband, and that I am here from the coast. Those are the things that really matter. That's who defines what I am, not my titles. So I think that's the important piece to remember. So many people here that I would love to thank. This is incredible for me. I've been looking forward to this since we announced the date, agreed on a date with Jamie. Just being here with you. I remember my time in the state Senate, being here with so many of you that are still here. Thank y'all for being involved. This is how we fix our country. People like you who stay engaged, who care, who give of your time and your effort. That's what the Founding Fathers kind of looked at and how you run an effective government. It's folks at the community level that are engaged. So I just appreciate y'all and want to thank y'all for that. A couple introductions really quickly. Y'all know the big, dapper, handsome devil that is with me today. The professor, was I loving to call him, Ray Carter. He has been so helpful to me, just the knowledge that he brings. And one of the things that I've tried to do is really get out of the way of my team because I'm surrounded by some smart folks. And people tell me all the time, hey, they have questions, and I'll say, let me give you just someone that knows the most about this, not me. And they say, well, I really just want to talk to the expert. I'm like, that's why I'm trying to give you the expert, which is really important for me to surround myself by smarter people than I am. And I'm the first one to admit that having a really good team is really how you lead. And so it's important to have folks around you that you trust. Speaking of, I've got one more that's here with me today, and I've not done this before. This is the very first time that I requested her to come specifically to a meeting. And Carla got up at about 5 this morning, or left at about 5 this morning and drove down. That's the importance that I place on this group. I know that you are drivers of the coast. The coast is the driver of the state, and that's really important. So I wanted y'all to know Carla Thornhill. She's my chief of staff. Carla, if you'll stand up really quickly. And when I say this, I'm not exaggerating. I could walk out of this office tomorrow, and Carla could pick it up and not skip a beat. That's how talented she is. She's been around for a couple of years. I won't tell how many secretaries she's served with, but she says I'm the best, so it's all that matters. So I appreciate that, Carla. But you do need to get to know Carla. She is a phenomenal servant. She cares about people. She cares about doing a good job. She's a preacher's kid like I am, so we can communicate on the same level, which is pretty fun to have those conversations from the PK perspective. But again, I'm just honored to be here. We're going to go through a couple of things really quickly, and I want to leave time for questions because that's really what matters most to me is hearing what's important to you, and I can address those. I'm going to do kind of a flyby. We've got 3 really areas of our office that we touch. Number 1, elections. We'll talk a little bit about elections. That's kind of the face of the office. Y'all know that. 2, business services, which is really where the breadth of the office comes in, really, really important piece of what we do. And then 3, public lands. And so on public lands, we'll talk a little bit about Tidelands, which is an important subject here on the coast. Where we have Tidelands, we have 16th section lands for education, and then we have tax forfeited lands. So that's kind of the lands piece. But on elections, really quickly, y'all kind of know what happened in 20. A lot of questions about the election, and look, I'm no one to say don't ask questions. I think that's important that we hold our elected officials accountable. That's how you get good government. When people like you are engaged and aren't afraid to ask questions, and we know that you're watching, I can't tell you how many times in the state senate, and my legislative friends that are here, thank y'all for being here, but I can't tell you how many times in the state senate, when people were in the gallery, they just tend to vote a little bit different when they're from their home area, because they know somebody's watching. I gotta make a good vote here, because this is gonna get out back home. When people like you are engaged and hold us accountable, you just get better government. So I encourage y'all to continue doing that, Jamie, with your leadership. Continue to stay involved with the legislature, making sure they know that you are watching, and I promise you, you'll get better results by that. And I have no idea where I was just going with that, but it's kind of good to see you. But our legislative friends, I pray that y'all would hold them accountable as well. Is this me? Do I need to be still? I don't like being still. So, I have literally no idea where I was just going with that. So elections. We'll start with elections. Again, you kind of saw what took place in 2020, a lot of questions, and I encourage y'all to continue to do that. But what we wanted to focus on was the integrity of the process. I don't care what your policy is. I don't care what you do in politics. If you can't have fair and free elections, then none of that really matters. Because the next individual may try to rig an election and then change every piece of policy that you put into place by then getting elected and changing those policies as they see fit. So focusing on elections has been really important for us. And when we came in, we saw some holes that we thought, we need to fix these things. One of the things that I did when I got elected, I went to the Circuit Clerks Association, and I sat down with them and I said, look, I'm coming to all 82 counties. I'm gonna sit down and visit with each of you because I wanna understand what it is that you do on a daily basis, which I had an idea, but it's better to sit down with somebody and ask them what's really going on to really know that. And number 2, I want you to know that I care. We've got to have a team with elections. Mississippi's the bottom-up state, which means the really hard work happens at the local level. So I want to make sure that you understand I care about what you say and what you're doing in your offices because it impacts us at the statewide level. So there was a lady in the back, she was a Democratic clerk, and she said, she leaned over to this other clerk who's a Republican clerk that I'm friends with, but the Democrat didn't know this. So she leans over and said, look, I'm coming to all your counties, and as soon as I said that, I see somebody in the back kind of lean over, and she says, that guy's so conservative, he's never coming to my county. And so thankfully, the lady came and told me, she said, look, this is what they're thinking, they don't think you're coming. It's just kind of something that you're saying. So guess where the first county I went? First. And I did that for 2 reasons. Number 1, I think every elected official should be a man or woman of their word. You tell somebody you're gonna do something, then you better do it. Number 2, I wanted her to understand, yeah, I got elected as a conservative, but I didn't get elected just to serve Republicans. I didn't get elected just to serve Democrats. I didn't get elected just to serve independents. I got elected to serve Mississippians. So as we can break down those kind of silos between parties and between different areas of our state and build a team, that's how you advance this state. So we did. We went to all 82 counties, met with 410 roughly elections commissioners, and for them to see somebody come in, I had one of them, I was leaving, matter of fact, and he said, Michael, and this is no slight to any previous secretary, so please don't take it like that. He said, Michael, I've been here for 36 years. You're the first secretary that's ever crossed the threshold into my office. And I thought how impactful that was, that they knew I actually do care. I actually do want to build relationships around the state because that's how we get better. As we work together, that's how the state becomes better. So y'all saw COVID hit in 20, and it's my first time to be a statewide elected official, much less over elections in a year with COVID and a contentious election. We'll leave it at that. But one of the things that we looked at was curbside voting. We were going to try to kind of expand curbside voting so folks didn't have to go into the courthouses to be exposed. And so I talked about that in the media a little bit. Well, when I went to visit these clerks, I told them, look, if you see something that I'm doing wrong, I hope that you'll let me know. That's really important that you hold me accountable so we can do this thing together the right way. So I had one call and said, look, hey, there's a few clerks that really want to come talk to you. We want to come talk to you about curbside voting. I was like, oh, that's great. I'm really promoting this. This is a good idea. He said, well, we'll see you in a couple weeks. So for about 45 minutes, there were about 15 clerks in there. And for about 45 minutes, they told me how much of an idiot I was. And they didn't say you're an idiot, but I could tell what they were saying diplomatically. That was so important to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, that they actually took to heart that I told them, I want you to come talk to me when I'm running afoul, when I'm doing something that may not be a good idea. What I didn't think about was these small town places in Mississippi with courthouses in the middle of a square, you're gonna lock them down if you do curbside voting. It's gonna shut the square down because of traffic. Well, I didn't think about that. That's the beauty of having folks who trust and who understand, hey, Michael really wants to hear from us. And I backed off of it because it was not a good idea. That's how you make a better Mississippi, by building those partnerships. So I tell you all that to say, when we deal with elections around the state, we bounce them off of our clerks, our commissioners, because I think it's important to have really a cohesive group running elections. So we've done several things of late. Well, we came in, and this is really important, so I want y'all to key in on this. One of the things that we do terribly as elected officials is educate the populace. It's important that you know whose job is what, because then you can hold them accountable. So we came in, we had 43 of our 82 counties that had 90% or more of the voting age population on the registered voter rolls. 7 counties had more than 100%. And I'm gonna tell you why that's important. The worst one, 107%. So let me explain this to you really quickly. So we're take Gulfport, and we'll say Gulfport has 100 people. Well, on election day, they have 107, because there are 7 additional names on the voter registration roll. So those 7 ballots could be out there taken advantage of. And if you don't think voter fraud is real, I got several stories for you. Now, I don't think it's widespread in Mississippi, but it happens. We found one a couple of counties north of here, maybe a few more than that, that basically someone was going to a nursing home, and when you're in a nursing home, you can request an absentee ballot. And so they had gotten this form with an original signature on it, and they kept the form and were whiting out the date and just putting a new date in every election season. So we got word of this, and we called Vital Statistics. We did our homework and said, hey, look, here are some names that we see that are continuing to vote. We just want to make sure everything's okay. And they were dead. All those individuals had passed away, but this individual had kept the request with the original signature on it. So when we go back to our example here of 107, you got 7 folks that may be passed away that are still on the registered voter roll that are still voting. That's the importance of making sure that our voter rolls are clean. That job falls to our elections commissioners. So we called them and said, hey, look, do your job. I sent letters to all 43 of those counties. And then we started putting those numbers on the website. So you can go to the website every month now and check your county, who's doing a good job, who's not. So I did this, and then the next Friday I was going to speak to them at one of the conferences. And so I walk in, it's a Friday morning, I'm whistling, it's fun, I got some coffee. My guy walks up to me, Kyle Kirkpatrick, he's our elections guy. And Kyle says, hey, they're not real happy with you. I was like, well, happy Friday to you too. It's be a good time. And, so what happened? He said, well, they got your letter, and they found out about the thing that we're putting on the internet tracking their numbers. And so I get up on the stage, and it's pretty chilly. I get those glances. Happy Friday to y'all too. It's good to see y'all on the coast. And basically tell them as diplomatically as I could, you do your job and we won't have any problems. So we've cut that 43 down now to about 20. It's in half. We still have work to do. But I'm telling you, it matters when you hold folks accountable. And that's an important piece that y'all play across the board. So as I can educate you on who to hold accountable for these different things, that's how we make a difference. A big thanks to our legislature. They've done a phenomenal job the last 4 years. We've got now it's proof of citizenship where only United States citizens can vote in our elections. We passed that. We passed a ban on ballot harvesting, which is now in a lawsuit. But again, that's an important piece. We passed our voter roll maintenance process that I just told you all about. That's now in statute. We got that passed last year. We've got ESF funds, which are election support funds. Those dollars come down to the local level because clearly it's a bottom-up state. So I want to thank the legislature for all the hard work they've done. This next year, you're going to start seeing post-election audits, actually starting in in November. And y'all remember back in 16 when President Trump won. And the left was so mad. We got to audit this. We got to do an audit. And then President Trump loses in 20, and then the right says, we got to audit this. We got to audit this. So everybody wants an audit when they lose, but they don't want it when they win. So in 16, Trump wins, and John Podesta and Hillary Clinton come out, and they say, look, we're going to form this group. We're going to tell you how to do elections well in the United States. Here's how we can fix them. One of the things they suggested, post-election audits. So again, elections is one of the areas where there just shouldn't be partisanship. There should be what's right, period. It's got to be fair for both sides. And so you're going to see post-election audits coming up, and there are procedural audits. Did you follow the law as is written in Mississippi? Did you do affidavit ballots right? Did you do absentee ballots right? Did you test the machines before and after? So making sure that we're following the law so we can return the confidence back to the process. And I'm proud of Mississippi. We've done a phenomenal job. I've now been invited to speak in Florida, going to Milwaukee today, DC, several other areas, because Mississippi is now a model for election integrity. That's incredible. I don't hear about that in the news, but that's across the country. People are saying, what's going on in Mississippi? They're doing it right. We've helped to register over 240,000 new registered voters in Mississippi since I've been in office. We're doing everything we can to make sure that the process is good here in Mississippi. That said, 30% turnout in a statewide primary, that's awful. That's embarrassing for our state. We've got to do better. That's where you come in. And we're talking earlier about this. This starts at home, where we're preparing our children and making sure they understand why it's important to be engaged in elections. We do Promote the Vote, where we go into schools. We do our ambassador program, which is now 67 high school seniors are coming to. We just had our first in-person meeting in Jackson last week. And we teach them three things. Number one, elections. Why is it important? And can you go do a voter registration drive in your school? Number two, how does Mississippi government work? To make sure that they know if you want an issue, how do you advocate for it? Here's what you need to know about state government. And number three has really been a mentorship. How do we pour into these young individuals? They're going to be leaders in our state. So this past it was Monday, 2 weeks ago, I think, Senior South, C-Spire, whoever their name is. Are they here today? Sorry. I love C-Spire. I have C-Spire, but your tower is going down and early. It's not doing very well. So C-Spire came and they supported the lunch. And they talked about the careers that you could have in Mississippi at C-Spire where you don't have to leave the state. Chevron, I saw Alan earlier, Chevron will be there in January when we have all of the upcoming seniors here in our program in January, talking about here are the things that you can do in Chevron. You don't have to leave Mississippi to have a great career. So making sure that we're pouring into our youth is something important as well. So I just encourage you, if you've got ideas about how to help people get engaged with elections, please let me know. We are trying everything we can, but it just seems to not be completely working yet. So be thinking about that as well as we move forward. Business services, I'll be really quickly on this one. So for those that don't know, we basically touch every business in the state. So your LLCs, your corporations, your nonprofits, securities, we got perpetual care cemeteries, sports agents. I could go on, but you get the picture. One of the things that I felt really necessary in the legislature, and if you watched the debate last night, you heard this talked about quite a bit, cutting the regulatory burden. We did some good work in the legislature. One of the things that we passed was the OLRC, the Occupational Licensing Review Commission. That's a lot of words. Basically what that is a group that oversees 29 boards and commissions. So think nurses, doctors. If you need a license from the state to do your job, it's under the OLRC. On that sits the governor, the attorney general, and myself. And so any new rule or regulation that is passed by one of these entities has to come before the OLRC. If it's overly broad, if it's not really tailored, if it's not for a public health benefit or public safety benefit, then we cut it. It's a really good check on the regulatory burden in our state. The problem is it's only for new pieces of regulation. So I want to say a big thanks to our legislature who had some great wisdom and said, you know what? We shouldn't be looking at just new. Let's look at the old ones too. We want to look at all the regulations on the books. When I came into office, 118,000 regulations on the books. So we started the OLRC in the legislature, gets out. I get in office and we start Tackle the Tape. I'm not sure if you've heard about Tackle the Tape, but this is where I also need your help. As business owners, you see the regulatory burden. If you see regulations that are bad for business, we want you to report those to us. So go to our website, click on Tackle the Tape, report the regulation. It can be an ordinance, it can be a state statute, it can be a regulation, it can be federal, whatever it is, we want to know about it. So then we go, look, does this agency even have the ability to regulate this? If they do, is it a good regulation? If it's not, then how do we cut it? How do we make it better? So that's where I need your help to do that. And it kind of sounds like, you know, that's a cool thing. How does that really work? So we had, a few months ago now, Winston County, who's from Winston County? No, the professor is, so my mom's from Winston County, great place. But Louisville, Mississippi. Louisville doesn't have a whole lot of grocery stores. So we had a local business owner there that was trying to open a Piggly Wiggly. Who likes Piggly Wiggly? Come on, good chicken.
Oh yeah, come on.
So Piggly Wiggly, and he calls and he says, hey look, I'm working with the USDA, and there's this regulation, I'm trying to get my doors open by Friday, but they keep putting me on hold, and I can't get any help there. And I said, well, what's going on? So he tells me the story. I said, well, maybe I'll call USDA. Now, it's kind of over my head. They're federal, I'm just the state level. He said, yeah, but you said anybody. I said, well, that's fair. I did it. So I called the state director. The state director's not there. The state director's assistant's there. And I say, hey, look, I need to get to the director. Here's an issue that I need some help with a small business here in Mississippi. And said, well, why don't you email me, give me the nuts and bolts of what's going on there, and let's see if we can help you. So I do. I send an email. And I get a response to that pretty quickly. I thought, well, here we go. This is cool. And it's a phone number. And that's it. There is no name, no email address. No, this is the department you'll be talking to. No, this is the name. I mean, nothing. A phone number. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm the the Secretary of State of the state of Mississippi. Can I get a phone number back? That's not going to fly with me. So I type an email out and I erase it. It was a little hot. So I typed email number 2 out, erased it as well. About 10 minutes later, I'd cooled down and typed number 3 and sent it. It was diplomatic enough to go. So I get an email back. I think, all right, here we go. A different phone number. I'll give him credit for that. It was a different phone number. I was irate. I was so stinking mad. So luckily for me, I have the cell phone to the chief of staff for Cindy Hyde-Smith. So I'll give her some credit back there. And I called Doug. I said, Doug, here's what's going on. Do you have a contact at USDA so I can help this individual? He said, oh yeah. So I called this person. They answered the phone, the actually person. And I talked to him. 2 days. 2 days later, it's done. The Piggly Wiggly gets to open their doors. Through this process, I'm thinking, I'm the sitting Secretary of State, and I couldn't get help. Imagine that small business owner that's trying to go through the USDA to get their doors open. They could not do it. That's the power of cutting the regulatory burden or having someone who understands, what, sometimes we got to navigate it to help individuals get around that and get an answer. That's the beauty of Tackle the Tape. The second piece of that was, we started 29 by 29. So 29 by 29, as I mentioned y'all before, the OLRC oversees 29 boards and commissions. We're going through every single regulation under those 29 boards and commissions by the year of 2029. We just started last year. We did our first 3, cosmetology, barbers, and architects. We came up with about 1,700 or so regulations. So let's do by average, 600 per classification there. If you're a small business owner, you've got 600 regulations to get your business off the ground. That's tough, that's expensive, that's hard. So we said, look, let's look at them. Which ones of these are good? So of the 1,700 together, about 1/3 of them were discretionary, which means it doesn't have backing statute or any other federal regulation. They just picked it out of thin air and thought, this is a good regulation, let's do this. 1/3. So that's what we're doing with 29 by 29. How do we pick these out? I sat down with all these boards, all 3 of these boards, and said, hey, look, this doesn't fly. How do we make this better for small businesses in Mississippi? So you're going to see those cuts start to come out. So we've got 3 more we just started next year. We put a group together, the Stennis Institute from Mississippi, Mercatus Institute, y'all know them out of DC, several others that are helping us study those regulations. So when we talk about cutting regulations, we don't just talk about it, we're actually doing it. Forbes wrote about it, so we've got some really national recognition. The National Association of Secretaries of State, this past year we won their Innovation Award. The Ideas Award is what they call it, the most innovative idea across the country right now. We're doing some great things. The White House called, said, hey, look, we see what's going on down with Tackle the Tape. Can you tell us a little bit about it? I thought, man, this is pretty cool. From Pascagoula, preacher's kid, small guy. And I'm talking to the White House, what? So for about an hour, I told them about the program. I hung the phone up, and Carla today I did a victory lap around the office, and I talked to the White House. It's pretty cool. And they called back. They called back and they said, hey, look, we really appreciate what you're doing here. We're going to have a national teleconference about cutting the regulatory burden at the state level. Could you present for Mississippi and tell other states what you're doing? What? How cool is that? I saw W at 6V here, sorry about this. But you don't hear about that in the media. They're not going to tell you those good things that are happening. But we're leading the country in elections, in cutting the regulatory burden. We're doing some incredible things at the Secretary of State's office. This is really a great team. So I want to really talk about, I told y'all, I introduced y'all to them earlier. This isn't about me, it really is about us. We got a phenomenal team doing some really good work. So that's business services. And then lastly, Tidelands. This is an issue, and I see my legislative buddies tensing up here. This is, first of all, remember this, overall, I'm from the coast. I grew up here. I understand the value of Tidelands. preserving them for our future generations, but balancing that with economic development. I get it. I want what's good for the coast, period. Carla will tell you how many times I've said this. If something is legal and we can do it, then get government out of the way, period. But if it isn't legal, we gotta follow the law, period. Sometimes it's not fun. I've taken a lot of heat on the coast, and I get it. You know, I was Secretary of State from Jackson. Actually, I'm from Jackson County, the coast, so don't forget that. Tidelands is a tough issue, and it's been a little bit conflated, in my opinion. You hear some conversations about the money, and it's roughly, on average, about $10 million a year that comes from Tidelands, that is appropriated through the legislature back to the coast, and that's an important thing to remember. So it's not me, it's the legislature. So there's an argument that says a certain municipality, I won't call any names, wants to bring back the amount of money that they send up. It should all stay at that city. And that's fine. If they want to make that argument, the legislature's gonna have to address that, not my office. But let's remember when this thing came into play, Senator Goliath, my former desk mate, to get this passed, and the legislature said, you know what? We're gonna share this across the entire coast. Y'all have heard about One Coast. I think Goliath was the original person to really kind of work that idea. So the entire coast voted together to get the Tidelands in 1989, and then the map went effective in 94, and then how do we disperse this money? So if it needs to be changed, then the legislature has to do that. I can't do that. So if you hear about money, that isn't me. The money piece is the legislature. But let me tell you what happens, and again, I'm not gonna be mean about this, this is just the fact. If that municipality decides that they get that 80% or whatever the number is, then those other municipalities are going to lose funding. DMR is going to lose funding. DMR uses a lot of their money to match for federal dollars to come down for their programming. So understand the impact to the coast if that is to happen. Again, that's not me, it's the legislature. What is my role? My role is the lease side. So the public tide trust funds, y'all know about the public trust Tidelands. I could give you the long history of it, but I think y'all know it well enough. So basically, folks have to come through our office to lease Tidelands, a Tidelands lease, to operate. It can be industrial. You've got Pascagoula that has a lot of leases that are the industrial side. You've got corporate, obviously, our casino friends in here. By the way, a quick aside, I don't know if any of them are in here, but we had a couple of our casinos back in the day when their original leases were signed, basically were forced to lease additional area that they didn't need. There was no explanation of why they're having to lease these things. So we got a good chance to kind of look at those leases and decide, you know what, that's not right. Why do they got to lease area that they don't need? So we were able to reduce, I think it was 4 total, a combination of $1 million to those 4 for the leases, because that's not right. So when people tell you I'm not business friendly or I'm not pro, growing casino industry on the coast, I'm gonna do what's right, period. And if it's good for the coast, then it's good for me, as long as it's legal. So we've got to play within the bounds of the law. So sometimes when you hear that I'm being mean, I'm just trying to defend the law as I see it. Now, there have been some court cases of late that we can talk about. That's fine, I'll answer any of those questions if you want. But those have all been very specific issues. Long Beach was one that was kind of recent. That was basically over a timeline of when agreements were signed, certain leases and boundary agreements, and when the city signed leases with Long Beach Harbor Resort, and when we signed leases with the city. Long story short, basically the court said, because this was signed before, you basically agreed to this lease, so you don't have to have a Tidelands lease. I know I'm getting in the weeds here, I'm sorry. RW Development was the latest, and because there had been a pier there, the city could basically claim that by reclamation. Key word there in the Port Harbor Act is acquire. The city has to acquire those lands. And they acquired them by reclamation, which was, in my mind, a little overstretched, but I'll leave that there. So I just want you to understand there are legal ramifications here at work. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to follow the law as I see it. So for that to change, there's 3 things that we can do. We can negotiate, and when the law's a law, I can't really negotiate around that. That leaves 2 options. We can legislate, so the legislature can decide if they want to change or speak specifically to something else, or we can litigate, and that's unfortunate. But sometimes that's the only option that we have. So when y'all see those lawsuits, It's not because I'm trying to be mean, it's because I'm trying to enforce the law as I understand it, and we'll let the court speak to that. So that's about as high level as I can get on that without making anybody mad. So we will leave that there. I can talk about a lot of things. I love this job, it's been incredible for me, but one of the coolest pieces that I wear to work with me every day is that I get to represent the coast on the statewide level. And that's such an honor for me growing up here, now knowing that I can carry the coast message around this entire state. And I'll tell you really quickly, sometimes we kind of get down here in our coast bubble, and sometimes, not that we're against anybody else in the state, but we need to remember that we're really all the same. And as the coast grows and drives this state, our state gets better. But we don't need to be jealous of other folks in certain areas of the state that may get something that the coast doesn't get. I want us to try to figure out how do we work together more efficiently, and that's how we do the right thing. So, great example, in 19 when I'm campaigning, by the way, I was at an event about 2 weeks before the general, and he's not here today, but so I won't call him out. But I was asked, hey, are you still running? I was like, dude, it's 2 weeks till the primary. Yeah, I'm still running. He said, well, I hadn't seen you on the coast. I said, well, I've been camped out in North Mississippi. If I can't win the coast, then I don't have a chance. So I want to say thank y'all for that. I felt really comfortable down here, and you showed out big time for me, so I really appreciate that. But I was in North Mississippi, and I was campaigning, and I don't know if y'all saw my commercial, my TV commercial, but I ran out of the room with my daughter, Cora Beth, who's now 5, dear gracious. And she had a dirty diaper in the campaign commercial. And so I was running out to go change the diaper. Well, I was speaking at Northeast Mississippi, and Lauren had gone to a wedding that weekend. So I had all 3 girls the weekend before the primary. Who does that to your husband? Love Lauren, she's fantastic. Girl can sing, by the way. So I speak, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, has my youngest daughter, and I'm getting close to the end of my speech, and I start to kind of smell something. I know what's going on over here to my right. And I put the mic down, and I realize, okay, I gotta take care of this. So I pick up Cora Beth, and I'm literally weaving through the traffic in the room to get her outside. Well, I get to my truck, and I realize in a panic state, I don't have any wipes.
Oh no.
That is not a good place to be. So the onlooker sees me kind of panicking over there, and it's a grandfather. And I learned one of the great lessons in life: always have wipes in your vehicle. It's just very important. He brings over a pack of wipes. So I finished changing the diaper. Y'all call them wipes? I call them wipers. Sorry, wipes. Wipe these wipes, who cares? So he brings it over. And by the time I finished changing my daughter, he had gone across the street to the Dollar General there and bought me a pack of wipes. And it just reminded me of how much in common we have, more than we have differences. That guy didn't know me from Adam, but he cared enough to go spend his own money to give me a pack of wipes because I was in trouble. That's the beauty of Mississippi. That's who we are. It's an incredible community. And as we remember those kind of stories about wipes, that's how we stick together. And that's how we grow this state to be so importantly leading the country in so many issues. So that's about it. Carla said I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to answer questions if y'all have any, except for legislators. So, stop. Any questions that y'all want me to talk about really quickly? Gracious. Okay, legislator. Yes, sir.
How do you determine the lease rate on a Tidelands lease?
So there are a couple different ways. I'm going to prefer that you talk to my agent in the back. Great example. If I get too far in the weeds here, Ray, let me know. But on the casinos that we were able to adjust, at the end of the day, the gaming space numbers were a little bit different. But we had to work that around to figure out how do we get this total number down. So sometimes it may not look like, hey, $5 here is $5 there. Sometimes it may be 6 here is the same as 4 here, depending on how many square feet you have. So it depends on the specific situation. But again, it's a
revenue based then.
well, casinos, so gaming floor, how much money they spend on their gaming floor, so for the assessment, and there's 2 different things there. There's an assessment, and then there's a lease. So the assessment are the casinos that moved on land. You'll remember back after Katrina, the 800 feet on. So again, some things are pretty much drilled in stone over water, about 20 cents a square foot. So it depends on what you're looking at and what the usage is. So again, it's a more complicated subject than an answer here. Appraisals, there's a lot of things that kind of get cooked into that, but I'll let the professor handle the hard questions. God bless you. What else? Yes, sir.
Y'all periodically buy land, probably along bayous, maybe flood zone. Recently, currently seeing something in Horn Island. Do y'all go out looking for land to buy, or do people come to you and say, here's some land for you to buy?
So it happens a bunch of different ways. The professional will like this answer. I don't like buying land. I think that it's better for private individuals to hold that land and the tax value that goes to the counties. You will recall, probably recently, this is a different step to that, and again, I'm not throwing any stones here, DMR. So, great friend, by the way. But there's a process by which now there's kind of three different agencies, DEQ, DMR, and us, that go in with some of these restoring dollars or whatever the dollars are in these different pots that are specifically for buying land. And before I came in, the cities and the municipalities and the counties really weren't talked to before. So now we're sending letters to y'all and saying, hey, look, is this gonna take revenue off the table for you if the state buys this and it's no longer taxable? I think that's an important piece. I don't think the state should be buying up everybody's land. Now, there are some instances where it works. If it's a swampy area that's never gonna be developed, I get it. So that's another kind of, really depends on facts. But some people do come to us and say, hey, would you like to buy this land? And there are some targeted areas that the DMR and DEQ see that thinks, this is an area that the state already owns all this around it, so maybe we should just buy this parcel too for management purposes. So it depends on the specific instance in the land as to how that process works. But I do think it's important that we do include our counties and our municipalities when these purchases happen, because if it's gonna take revenue off of your rolls and it's gonna take developable property out of your rolls, that's a bad idea. So I'm not one that goes out and says, let's go buy a bunch of land. I sometimes get in trouble for that. Yeah.
In the state, do we have electronic voting versus paper ballots, or what? How is it around the state?
Yeah, great question. Do we have electronic or paper ballots? So by 2024, all 82 counties now have to have a paper verifiable trail. So what you're going to see, and Harrison County was one of the first ones to actually do this, you're voting on paper ballots, and you send them to an optical scanner, and you get the results from that. The key thing here is, and I want to say a big thank you to the legislature, because they're the ones that actually made this happen. We got some funding for our counties that really couldn't afford the new machines. So all the counties that access those funds have to meet two goals. Number one, cannot be, they can't access online, it can't be internet capable. The second thing is it has to have a paper verifiable trail. So the key thing there is you saw a lot of questions about machines over the last few years. Well, now, if there's some question about the machine, let's just go look at that paper. At the end of the day, the paper ballot is what's going to rule the day, period. So by 2024, all 82 counties have to have paper verifiable trails. And if they access those dollars, they cannot connect to the internet. So a really important piece there, and I thought that was a great thing that the legislature did. Again, returning confidence to the process. When you know you've got that paper, machines, whatever, here's the paper, I can prove it. So a really important question, thank you for that. What else? That's it. Carlos says I gotta go. I'm going to catch a flight. I'm going to talk about our election process here in Mississippi at the Republican National Lawyers Association. And it's so cool for me to be able to represent Mississippi on that national level, because there's so many good things happening here. Far too many times we kind of hear this national narrative and we start to buy into it. Well, maybe we are just Mississippi. Bull. Mississippi's incredible. We've got so many good things happening right here. If I told you about the small business numbers, year over year, the growth in Mississippi, really quickly before I get kicked off the stage. So 19, we had about 30,000 roughly new small business formations in our state. In 2020, COVID hits. People think, oh gosh, that had to crash. We had north of 50,000 new businesses. Some of those were because they wanted the COVID dollars. I get it. My favorite call was from DOR, and they'd be like, hey, tell me about this LLC. Well, they formed yesterday. So they were trying to get the dollars, I understand. Well, you would think that would kind of go down a little bit. The next year, 60+ thousand in businesses in Mississippi. And then the next year, we had about 56,000 new businesses in Mississippi. Those numbers are incredible. And I think it's based on the idea that, the legislature's done a really good job of cutting the tax burden. And then now we got this Secretary of State over here that's cutting the regulatory burden. That's a great mix to grow businesses. So I think you're gonna see that continue in our state in the next few years, but having the understanding that our small business is growing in Mississippi is really important for the backbone of our economy. So to our elected officials here, thank you for what you do. I really appreciate you putting your name on the line and serving the people of Mississippi. And to our business owners, we wouldn't be here without you. I appreciate what you do. When I can help, please let me know. Carla, the professor, we are honored to serve. And again, I'm honored to be from the coast on the statewide level. So thank you very much. Want to keep that mug?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, please do, take several to Jackson with you. Okay, I won't keep you here. Listen, if I don't say this, I'm not doing my job. We want to add value to the Gulf Coast in general. We do that through making sure our private industry and businesses' voice is heard. But who are we speaking to typically? It's our local elected officials, our House and Senate members, our statewide elected members. We want to strengthen our hand in Jackson. We want to strengthen our hand in the courthouse and in City Hall. We do that, we believe, by partnering with you, our elected officials. We want to be a resource for you. If you want to know what the business community thinks, we want to be a resource for you. We want to support you where we can, with the ultimate goal of growing the coast and growing our state. I mean, that's where we're all headed. We want a better quality of life. We want a thriving economy. And meetings like this go a long way to do that. For those of you that were reelected, and those of you who are in runoffs or will be newly elected to new offices, please don't forget that the Business Council wants to be a supporter of yours. And we may have some difficult conversations along the way, but we'll never do that publicly. We talked about accountability, and we certainly want our officials to be held accountable, but we want to do that fairly. And so I'm making this promise to y'all as we move forward. We will do that in a fair way with the ultimate goal of supporting you so that the coast can grow and our state can grow. Thank you again for a great meeting. We'll be in touch. Y'all have a wonderful day.